The plan is Legend of Zelda, Wind Temple, and Philomena Cunk on Autism. It's going to be live.
A beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191. The known universe is ruled by the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, my father. In this time, the most precious substance in the universe is the spice melange. The spice extends life. The spice expands consciousness. The spice is vital to space travel. The Spacing Guild and its navigators, who the spice has mutated over 4,000 years, use the orange spice gas, which gives them the ability to fold space. That is, travel to any part of the universe without moving. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you. The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. A desolate, dry planet with vast deserts. Hidden away within the rocks of these deserts are a people known as the Fremen, who have long held a prophecy that a man would come, a Messiah, who would lead them to true freedom. The planet is Arrakis, also known as June.
In a world where chaos reigns and connections seem fleeting, one visionary endeavor seeks to bring us all together. Zen Theatre Live After Dark. Harnessing the transformative power of artificial intelligence, the timeless charm of radio theater. The wisdom of books, and the excitement of video games. Zen Theatre Live After Dark illuminates the path to enlightenment and fosters a sense of unity among its audience. Through this unique fusion of storytelling and interactive experiences, we aim to nurture personal growth, improve learning, and inspire a peaceful existence. Guided by your obedient servant, Sebastian St. Serapian Smalls, we embark on a journey of self-discovery. But where do we begin? Begin by simply listening, slow down, see just how peaceful today can be. Together, we shall create a harmonious community, bound by shared passions and a desire to elevate the human experience. Sebastian St. Serapian Smalls will be there, to the end of the line, my Valentine, guiding you on this journey towards a more serene and enlightened tomorrow. Catch you guys on the flip side.
Celebrity victim of cancel culture.
Brilliant, thank you. Jesus was killed because people didn't like what he was saying, so could you call him the first celebrity victim of cancel culture?
I think cancel culture would sort of require the idea that people really saw Jesus as standing for something and they were sure they knew what it was.
Oh no, sorry, that wasn't a question. I'm literally asking if you could call him the first celebrity victim of cancel culture for our show. Down that lens there. Just, you know, it's a sort of, it's for a credit sequence with punchy sound bites in it. Off you go. Down that lens.
Okay, down this lens.
Yeah.
You might even say Jesus was the first celebrity victim of cancel culture.
Brilliant, thank you. Jesus was killed.
Philomena Cunk, voiceover. In today's episode, we are going to explore the fascinating world of neurodiversity, which is like a big mix of brains, kind of like a brain salad, but with less lettuce and more thoughts. Neurodiversity is the idea that people's brains are all different, and some brains might work in ways that others don't. It's a bit like having different flavors of ice cream, except the flavors are ADHD, dyslexia, and autism, among other things. But just like ice cream, no matter the flavor, it's all still delicious. I mean, valuable. Now, you may be wondering, what's so important about neurodiversity, and why should I care? Well, that's a good question, and I'm here to give you some almost accurate answers. You see, neurodiverse people, like those with autism, are often misunderstood by the rest of us. And that's a real shame because they can offer us unique insights and perspectives that can only come from their special brains. So, in this episode, we'll focus on autism, the most common and most misunderestimated form of neurodiversity. Autism is a bit like a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit together, or maybe they do, but we just haven't figured out how. Some say it's a spectrum, like a rainbow, but with more brain stuff and fewer pots of gold. People with autism can be as different from each other as you or me, or even that bloke who lives down the street and collects garden gnomes. So, it's important to remember that autism isn't just one thing. It's a whole load of things, all wrapped up together in a big, confusing, brainy bundle. Now, there are some people out there who might think that having autism is a bad thing, like it's some sort of disorder or something. But that's not really true. You see, people with autism have got all sorts of skills and talents that us so-called normal people don't. For example, they might be really good at maths or art or remembering obscure facts about 18th century agricultural practices. So, it's not fair to say that autism is a disadvantage. It's more like a different way of experiencing the world, a bit like wearing 3D glasses when everyone else is stuck in boring old 2D. Throughout this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of autism, unearthing its mysteries, and asking some hard-hitting questions, like, what's it like to have autism? Why do people with autism think the way they do? And what's the deal with all those stimming behaviors, like hand flapping and rocking? We'll also be talking to some so-called experts who claim to know a thing or two about autism. But don't worry, I'll be asking them the tough questions that other journalists are too afraid to ask, like how do people with autism feel about the fact that Rain Man is their most famous representative? And do autistic people really like trains, or is that just a stereotype? So, join me, Philomena Cunk, as we embark on this exciting journey through the world of autism, seeking to understand what makes these incredible people tick, and uncovering the truth behind their unique brains. Because, at the end of the day, we're all just people, trying to make sense of this crazy, mixed-up world, one brain at a time. Cut to Philomena in front of a blackboard with the word neurodiversity written on it. Philomena Cunk, voiceover. In today's episode, we are going to explore the fascinating world of neurodiversity, which is like a big mix of brains, kind of like a brain salad, but with less lettuce and more thoughts. Neurodiversity is the idea that people's brains are all different, and some brains might work in ways that others don't. It's a bit like having different flavors of ice cream, except the flavors are ADHD, dyslexia, and autism, among other things. But just like ice cream, no matter the flavor, it's all still delicious. I mean, valuable. Now, you may be wondering, what's so important about neurodiversity, and why should I care? Well, that's a good question, and I'm here to give you some almost accurate answers. You see, neurodiverse people, like those with autism, are often misunderstood by the rest of us. And that's a real shame because they can offer us unique insights and perspectives that can only come from their special brains. So, in this episode, we'll focus on autism, the most common and most misunderestimated form of neurodiversity. Autism is a bit like a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit together, or maybe they do, but we just haven't figured out how. Some say it's a spectrum, like a rainbow, but with more brain stuff and fewer pots of gold. People with autism can be as different from each other as you or me, or even that bloke who lives down the street and collects garden gnomes. So, it's important to remember that autism isn't just one thing. It's a whole load of things, all wrapped up together in a big, confusing, brainy bundle. Now, there are some people out there who might think that having autism is a bad thing, like it's some sort of disorder or something. But that's not really true. You see, people with autism have got all sorts of skills and talents that us so-called normal people don't. For example, they might be really good at maths or art or remembering obscure facts about 18th century agricultural practices. So, it's not fair to say that autism is a disadvantage. It's more like a different way of experiencing the world, a bit like wearing 3D glasses when everyone else is stuck in boring old 2D. Throughout this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of autism, unearthing its mysteries, and asking some hard-hitting questions, like, what's it like to have autism? Why do people with autism think the way they do? And what's the deal with all those stimming behaviors, like hand flapping and rocking? We'll also be talking to some so-called experts who claim to know a thing or two about autism. But don't worry, I'll be asking them the tough questions that other journalists are too afraid to ask, like how do people with autism feel about the fact that Rain Man is their most famous representative? And do autistic people really like trains, or is that just a stereotype? So, join me, Philomena Cunk, as we embark on this exciting journey through the world of autism, seeking to understand what makes these incredible people tick, and uncovering the truth behind their unique brains. Because, at the end of the day, we're all just people, trying to make sense of this crazy, mixed-up world, one brain at a time. Cut to Philomena in front of a blackboard with the word neurodiversity written on it. Philomena, now that we've covered the basics of neurodiversity, let's dive into the deep end of the brain pool and try to understand what it actually means. You see, neurodiversity is a fancy word that scientists and other clever people came up with to describe how our brains are all different, but still part of what makes us human. It's like the saying different strokes for different folks, but instead of strokes, we're talking about brain functions, and instead of folks, we're talking about the entire human population. Now, you might be wondering, what's the big deal with neurodiversity? We're all different anyway, aren't we? Well, yes, but neurodiversity is like the cherry on top of the cake of human diversity. It's what makes our species so fascinating, and also so baffling. You see, neurodiversity covers all the little quirks and eccentricities that make our brains unique, from the way we think and learn to the way we interact with others. But, and here's where things get a bit complicated, neurodiversity isn't just about celebrating our differences. It's also about recognizing that some people's brains work in ways that can make life more challenging for them. And that's where conditions like autism, ADHD, and dyslexia come into play. These are all examples of neurodiverse conditions, which means that they are part of the normal variation in the human population, just like having blue eyes or being left-handed. So, what exactly is this normal variation we keep talking about? Well, let's imagine the human brain as a big, complicated jigsaw puzzle. Now, if you're neurotypical, which is a fancy way of saying not neurodiverse, your puzzle pieces all fit together nicely, and you end up with a lovely picture of a kitten or a sunset or something. But if you're neurodiverse, some of your puzzle pieces might be a bit wonky or a different shape, so your finished picture might look more like an abstract painting or one of those weird optical illusions that give you a headache. But just because your brain puzzle is a bit more, well, puzzling, that doesn't mean it's any less valuable or interesting. In fact, some of the greatest minds in history were probably neurodiverse, like Albert Einstein or Leonardo da Vinci or that bloke who invented the Rubik's Cube. So, neurodiversity isn't something to be scared of or ashamed of. It's something to be embraced and celebrated, like a big, brainy hug. Now, it's important to remember that neurodiverse people aren't just walking encyclopedias of weird and wonderful facts. They're real people with real feelings and real challenges, just like the rest of us. And that's why it's crucial that we try to understand and support them, instead of just gawking at them like they are some sort of circus freak show. Throughout this episode, we'll be exploring the many facets of autism, trying to get to the bottom of what it means to be autistic in a world that often seems designed for neurotypicals. We'll be chatting with experts, visiting historical sites, and asking the hard-hitting questions that other journalists are too scared to tackle, like what do autistic people think about fidget spinners? And can you really catch autism from vaccines? Spoiler alert, you can't. So, join me, Philomena Cunk, as we embark on this mind-bending journey through the world of neurodiversity, seeking to understand the unique experiences of those who see the world through a different lens. Because, in the end, we're all just people, trying to make sense of this crazy, mixed-up world, one brain at a time. Cut to Philomena standing in front of a wall with various images and charts related to neurodiverse conditions. Philomena, now, I know I've been going on about neurodiversity a lot, and you might be thinking, all right, Philomena, we get it. But what does all this have to do with autism? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's exactly what I'm going to explain now. You see, autism is one of the most well-known examples of neurodiversity, and it's often used as a sort of poster child for the whole concept. It's like the David Beckham of brain differences, if you will. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD for short, is a bit like a club for people whose brains work in a different way from the so-called normal population. And just like any good club, there are different levels of membership, ranging from mild to severe, or, as the experts like to call it, high functioning to low functioning. But let's not get bogged down in technical terms. What's important is that autism is a spectrum, which means that there's a whole range of experiences and abilities that fall under its umbrella. Now, you might be thinking, hold on a minute, Philomena. If autism is part of neurodiversity, then why do we need a separate term for it? Isn't that just confusing things even more? Well, that's a very astute observation, dear viewer. You see, while autism is indeed part of the broader concept of neurodiversity, it's also a distinct condition with its own unique set of characteristics and challenges. It's a bit like how all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares, or how all dogs are animals, but not all animals are dogs. You get the idea. But autism isn't the only condition that falls under the neurodiversity umbrella. There are loads of other brain differences out there, like ADHD, dyslexia, and learning disabilities, just to name a few. These are all examples of neurological or developmental conditions that can make life a bit more challenging for those who have them, but they are also part of what makes the human brain such a fascinating and diverse organ. Cut to Philomena walking through a park, contemplating. Philomena, as I strolled through the park, pondering the vast array of brain differences that make up the tapestry of human neurodiversity, I couldn't help but wonder, what is it that makes autism so special? Why is it that this particular brain difference has captured the public's imagination in a way that other neurodiverse conditions haven't? And, perhaps most importantly, what can we learn from autistic people that might help us better understand ourselves and the world around us? To answer these questions, I decided to embark on a quest for knowledge, a journey through the complex and often misunderstood world of autism spectrum disorder. Along the way, I would speak to experts, visit historic sites, and delve into the lives of autistic individuals, all in the hope of unraveling the mystery that is the autistic brain. But before I could do that, I needed to understand the basics of autism. What are the key features of this enigmatic condition, and how do they manifest in the lives of those who have it? Are autistic people really as different from the rest of us as we've been led to believe, or is there more that unites us than divides us? And, perhaps most crucially, never mind, I lost my train of thought. Now, you may be thinking, alright, Philomena, you've been going on about all these different brain differences, but just how many people are we talking about here? Is this really something that affects a significant portion of the population, or are you just making a mountain out of a molehill? Well, dear viewer, I'm glad you asked, because the answer might surprise you. You see, neurodiverse conditions, like autism, ADHD, and dyslexia, are actually far more common than you might think. In fact, they affect a whopping number of people, not just here in the UK, but all around the world. For example, did you know that approximately 1 in every 100 people in the UK is autistic? That's right, there are more autistic people in the UK than there are redheads, which really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Cut to Philomena standing in front of a giant map of the world with various statistics displayed. Philomena, and it's not just the UK that's full of neurodiverse individuals. All around the world, people are discovering that their brains work in ways that are just a bit different from the norm. In fact, it's estimated that at least 1% of the global population is autistic, which means that there are more autistic people in the world than there are people living in Australia, and I think we can all agree that's a lot of people. But autism is just one piece of the neurodiversity puzzle. When you take into account all the other neurodiverse conditions, like ADHD and dyslexia, the numbers become even more staggering. For example, did you know that up to 5% of the population has ADHD, and a similar percentage has dyslexia? That means that, all in all, neurodiverse individuals make up a significant portion of the human population, kind of like a really big jigsaw puzzle where each piece is just a bit different from the rest. Cut to Philomena interviewing an expert on neurodiversity. Philomena: so, doctor, if neurodiversity is so common, does that mean that everyone is a little bit autistic, or ADHD, or dyslexic, or whatever? And if that's the case, then why do we even bother with labels at all? Why don't we just accept that everyone's brain is different and move on? Expert: well, Philomena, while it's true that there is a great deal of variation in human brain function and behavior, not everyone is necessarily neurodiverse in the sense that they have a specific condition like autism or ADHD. These conditions are defined by certain patterns of behavior and cognitive abilities that can make it more challenging for individuals to navigate certain aspects of life, and it's important to recognize and support those who need it. Philomena: so, what you're saying is that even though neurodiverse people make up a significant portion of the population, it's still important to identify and support them, kind of like how we put labels on our clothes to make sure we don't accidentally wear our pants on our head. Expert: yes, I suppose you could put it that way. Philomena: fascinating. Cut to Philomena standing on a busy street, observing people passing by. Philomena: as I stood there, watching the hustle and bustle of everyday life, I couldn't help but wonder, how many of these people are secretly neurodiverse? How many of them are struggling with challenges and barriers that the rest of us can't even begin to comprehend? And, most importantly, how can we, as a monarchy, treat everyone in a way that allows everyone to feel accepted? As we've established, neurodiverse people are everywhere, like a silent army of brainy warriors, marching to the beat of their own drum. But life isn't all sunshine and rainbows for those with neurodiverse conditions. In fact, they face a whole host of challenges and barriers in society, like a never-ending game of snakes and ladders, but with more snakes and fewer ladders. Cut to Philomena interviewing a neurodiversity advocate. Philomena: so, what sorts of challenges do neurodiverse people face in their day-to-day lives? Are we talking about, like, not being able to open jars or getting their shoelaces tied in knots, or is it more serious than that? Advocate: well, Philomena, the challenges faced by neurodiverse individuals can be quite varied and complex. They often face stigma and discrimination, both in their personal and professional lives, which can lead to social isolation and exclusion. Additionally, they may struggle with a lack of understanding and support from society, which can exacerbate their difficulties. Philomena: oh, so it's more like trying to navigate a maze while blindfolded and riding a unicycle. Advocate: I suppose that's one way to think about it, yes. Cut to Philomena standing in front of a school. Philomena: one place where neurodiverse people can face a particularly tough time is in the world of education. With classrooms full of noisy children, confusing instructions, and more rules than you can shake a stick at. School can be a real struggle for those with conditions like autism or ADHD. It's a bit like trying to learn how to knit while being chased by a pack of wild dogs, not exactly the ideal learning environment. Cut to Philomena interviewing a teacher. Philomena, so, as a teacher, how do you handle neurodiverse students in your classroom? Do you give them special treatment, like letting them wear sunglasses indoors or giving them their own personal butler? Teacher, well, no, Philomena. We try to make reasonable accommodations to support neurodiverse students and help them succeed in the classroom. This might include providing additional time on exams, offering visual aids, or using alternative teaching methods. It's about creating an inclusive learning environment that supports all students, not just those who are neurodiverse. Philomena, so, kind of like one of those all-you-can-eat buffet, where everyone gets to pick and choose what works best for them. Teacher, that's an interesting analogy, but I suppose it's not entirely inaccurate. Cut to Philomena observing a workplace. Philomena, but the challenges don't stop once neurodiverse people leave school. In fact, the world of work can be an even more daunting labyrinth for those with autism or other conditions, as they navigate the murky waters of office politics, job interviews, and water cooler gossip. It's like trying to play a game of chess while riding a roller coaster, exhilarating, but also potentially nauseating. Cut to Philomena interviewing a business owner. Philomena, so, as a business owner, how do you make sure that your workplace is accommodating to neurodiverse individuals? Do you provide them with their own personal office space, complete with beanbag chairs and mood lighting, or do you just let them work from home in their pajamas? Business owner, well, neither of those options are exactly what we do. We try to create an inclusive and supportive work environment by offering flexible working arrangements, providing training and awareness programs for our staff, and making reasonable adjustments so everyone is able to thrive here. Philomena, now that we've explored the darker side of neurodiversity, it's time to shine a light on the brighter side. You see, neurodiverse people aren't just a collection of challenges and barriers. In fact, they possess a dazzling array of strengths and abilities that many of us can only dream of. It's like discovering a hidden treasure chest full of jewels, or a secret stash of biscuits when you thought you'd run out. Cut to Philomena interviewing an expert on neurodiversity. Philomena, so, what kind of superpowers do these neurodiverse individuals have? Can they read minds or move objects with their thoughts, like in that film with the bald professor and his gang of mutants? Expert, well, no, Philomena, they don't have literal superpowers. But many neurodiverse people do have strengths and abilities that can be quite remarkable. For example, they might be particularly creative or innovative, or they might have a unique way of problem solving or seeing the world that allows them to come up with groundbreaking ideas. Philomena, so, they're like undercover geniuses, hiding in plain sight, just waiting to unleash their brain power on an unsuspecting world. Expert, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but yes, neurodiverse people can contribute a lot to society with their unique talents and perspectives. Cut to Philomena visiting an art gallery. Philomena, one area where neurodiverse people often excel is in the arts, using their unique way of seeing the world to create masterpieces that leave the rest of us mere mortals gasping for breath. It's a bit like watching a swan glide gracefully across a lake, while we paddle around in circles, flapping our arms like a demented duck. Cut to Philomena interviewing an artist with autism. Philomena, so, as an autistic artist, Do you feel like you have a special connection with the art world, like you can communicate with the paint or hear the whispers of the canvas? Artist, I wouldn't say I can communicate with paint or anything like that, but I do think that my autism influences the way I see and interpret the world around me. It allows me to notice details and patterns that others might miss, and I try to incorporate those observations into my art. Philomena, fascinating. It's like you have a secret code for unlocking the mysteries of the universe, hidden within your paintbrush. Cut to Philomena at a tech company. Philomena, but it's not just the arts that benefit from the unique talents of neurodiverse people. The world of technology is also rife with examples of autistic individuals who have used their skills to transform our lives, like a digital alchemist, turning code into gold. Cut to Philomena interviewing a tech entrepreneur with autism. Philomena, so, as an autistic tech entrepreneur, do you find that your condition gives you an edge in the cutthroat world of business, like some sort of secret weapon or a hidden cheat code? Entrepreneur, I wouldn't call it a secret weapon, but I do think that my autism has helped me in some ways. For example, I have a strong attention to detail, and I'm able to focus intensely on a task for long periods of time. These traits have certainly been beneficial in my work. Philomena, it's like you're a superhero, fighting for justice in the digital realm, armed with nothing but your wits and a trusty keyboard. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, there you have it. Neurodiverse people might face a host of challenges, but generally they are not without their supernatural abilities and hopefully costumes and secret identities to fight back the forces of evil. Philomena, now that we've dipped our toes into the vast ocean that is neurodiversity, it's time to take a deep dive into the enigmatic world of autism. It's like trying to solve a complex jigsaw puzzle, with half the pieces missing and the rest covered in jam. Because, you see, autism is the most common and most misunderstood form of neurodiversity, affecting about 1 in every 100 people in the UK. That's roughly the same odds as finding a 4-leaf clover or a tasty salad at a fast food restaurant. Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, what exactly is autism? Is it like a special club for people who are really good at maths, or is it more like a secret society for those who can communicate with aliens? Expert, well, Philomena, autism is a complex developmental condition that affects how a person thinks, feels, and interacts with others. It's not a club or a secret society, but rather a spectrum of characteristics that can vary greatly from one individual to another. Philomena, so it's like a giant buffet of traits and behaviors, where each person gets to pick and choose their favorite dishes. Expert, that's not quite accurate, but it does highlight the wide range of experiences and challenges that people with autism may face. Cut to Philomena visiting a school for autistic children. Philomena, here at this school for children with autism, they are doing groundbreaking work to help these misunderstood youngsters unlock their full potential, like a locksmith who's really good at cracking safes, but with brains instead of cash inside. Cut to Philomena interviewing a teacher at the school. Philomena, so, as a teacher working with autistic children, what's it like to shape the minds of these extraordinary young people? Do you ever feel like you're molding the next generation of super geniuses or potential supervillains? Teacher, well, our goal is to help each child develop their unique strengths and abilities, so they can reach their full potential. While some may excel academically or creatively, it's important to remember that each child is an individual, and our focus is on helping them overcome their challenges and achieve their own personal goals. Philomena, it's like you're a gardener, nurturing these special flowers, so they can bloom and brighten up the world with their vibrant colors and unique scents. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, throughout this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at the many facets of autism, from its history and diagnosis to the various treatments and therapies available. Along the way, we'll be speaking with experts, parents, and autistic individuals themselves, in an attempt to unravel the many mysteries that surround this fascinating condition. Cut to Philomena in front of a historical site. Philomena, we'll also be visiting important historical and cultural sites, where the impact of autism can still be felt today. Like this ancient temple, which was built by a civilization that believed the gods communicated through intricate patterns and symbols, much like the way autistic people sometimes perceive and process the world around them. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, join me, Philomena Cunk, as we embark on this enlightening journey to uncover the truth about autism. Who knows, we might even learn a thing or two about ourselves along the way. Or at the very least, finally understand what all those blue puzzle piece ribbons are for. End of introduction. Philomena, now, before we embark on our magical mystery tour of autism, let's try to wrap our heads around what this mysterious condition actually is. You see, autism is like a strange and wonderful rainbow, but instead of colors, it's made up of quirks, talents, and challenges. And like a rainbow, it can be difficult to pin down and understand, especially if you're not wearing the right kind of sunglasses. Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, what is autism, exactly? Is it like a rare and exotic virus, or more like a secret code hidden inside our brains that only a select few can decipher? Expert, well, Philomena, autism is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects how a person perceives and socializes with others, causing challenges in social interaction and communication. The condition also includes limited and repetitive patterns of behavior. Philomena, I see. So it's like a special type of brain language that only autistic people can speak, and the rest of us are just left scratching our heads, wondering why they won't stop talking about trains. Expert, that's not quite accurate, but it does highlight the differences in communication and social interaction that people with autism may experience. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, now, some people might tell you that autism is caused by vaccines, or genes, or gluten, or maybe even a combination of all three, like a sinister cocktail of neurological confusion. But as we all know, the truth is much stranger than that. Cut to a staged scene of Philomena in a lab, clumsily mixing chemicals. Philomena, you see, autism is actually the result of a secret formula that was discovered by ancient alchemists, who were trying to create a potion that would grant them unparalleled intelligence and the ability to solve complex mathematical equations in their heads. Unfortunately, the formula was lost for centuries, only to be rediscovered by modern scientists who were trying to create a new flavor of breakfast cereal. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, now, you might think that autism is some sort of curse, condemning those who have it to a life of solitude and misery. But in reality, it's more like a double-edged sword, capable of both great feats of genius and baffling acts of idiocy. Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, when it comes to autism, is it true that people with this condition are either geniuses or idiots, with nothing in between? Like a human version of Schrödinger's cat, but instead of being dead or alive, they are either really smart or really stupid. Expert, no, that's a misconception. People with autism have a wide range of abilities and intelligence levels, just like the rest of the population. It's important not to stereotype or make assumptions about their capabilities based on their diagnosis. Philomena, so it's more like a roulette wheel of cognitive abilities, where you never know what you're going to get until the ball lands and decides your neurological fate. Expert. That's an interesting way to put it, but it's important to remember that autism is a complex condition with many different factors and influences. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, now that we have a basic understanding of what autism is, it's time to delve deeper into the rabbit hole and explore the myths and misconceptions surrounding this enigmatic condition. From its causes and treatments to the people who live with it every day, we'll be peeling back the layers of the autism onion, one tear-inducing slice at a time. Philomena, now, one of the most confusing aspects of autism is that it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. You see, it's what's known as a spectrum disorder, which means that it can affect people in many different ways, like a giant game of neurological bingo where everyone gets a different card and nobody knows what the prizes are. Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, this autism spectrum thing, is it like a rainbow of autism, where at one end, you've got people who are really good at maths and solving Rubik's cubes, and at the other end, you've got people who can't tie their own shoelaces? Expert. Well, the autism spectrum does represent a wide range of abilities and challenges, but it's not as simple as that. People with autism may have strengths in some areas and difficulties in others, and the severity of these can vary greatly from person to person. Philomena, I see. So it's like a pick-and mix of neurological quirks, where everyone gets to choose their own unique combination of challenges and abilities, like a sort of human buffet of brain stuff. Expert. That's an interesting way to think about it. But it's important to remember that people with autism don't choose their challenges or strengths. They're just part of who they are. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, now, if you're wondering where you might fall on this so-called autism spectrum, you're in luck. Experts have devised a series of tests to help pinpoint your exact location on the autism rainbow, like a neurological GPS that can tell you if you're more of a struggling with small talk or a master of card counting kind of person. Cut to Philomena taking an autism test. Philomena, question 1, do you have difficulty understanding social cues? Well, that's a tough one. I mean, who hasn't accidentally laughed at a funeral or tried to high-five someone who's just been fired? Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, but enough about me. Let's get back to the autism spectrum. As we've already established, it's a bit like a big, confusing puzzle that's constantly changing shape and size, making it almost impossible to pin down. But one thing's for sure, it's not a disease or a disorder, but a difference or a diversity. Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, if autism is a difference rather than a disorder, does that mean it's more like a superpower? Like being able to see in the dark or walk through walls, but with your brain? Expert. Well, it's not exactly a superpower, but thinking of autism as a difference or a diversity can help us to better understand and appreciate the unique strengths and abilities that people with autism may have. Philomena, so it's like having a secret weapon in your neurological arsenal that only you and other autistic people know about, like a top-secret club of misunderstood geniuses. Expert. That's one way to look at it. But it's important to recognize that people with autism also face many challenges, and it's our responsibility as a society to provide the support and understanding they need to thrive. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, there you have it. Autism, a mysterious condition that has baffled scientists and lay people alike for centuries, is really just a matter of difference and diversity. And while it might make life a bit more challenging for those who live with it, it also gives them a unique perspective on the world. Philomena, so, we've talked about the so-called autism spectrum, which is a bit like a neurological rainbow, and how autism isn't actually a disease or a disorder, but more of a difference or a diversity. But if it's not a disease, then why do so many people treat it like one? Cut to Philomena interviewing an autism expert. Philomena, so, if autism is just a difference or a diversity, does that mean we should celebrate it, like a national holiday or a parade? Maybe we could have an Autism Awareness Day, where everyone dresses up as their favorite autistic person and does a conga line through the streets, shouting "We're all a bit autistic," really. Expert, well, raising awareness and understanding of autism is certainly important, but I'm not sure a parade is the best way to do that. People with autism often struggle with sensory sensitivities, so a loud and chaotic event like that might not be the most inclusive or enjoyable experience for them. Philomena, I see. So maybe we should have a quiet, indoor celebration instead, like an autism appreciation book club or an autistic-friendly rave with noise-cancelling headphones and gluten-free snacks. Expert, again, it's important to raise awareness and promote understanding, but it's also crucial to remember that people with autism are individuals, with their own unique needs and preferences. What might be enjoyable for one person with autism might not be for another. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, if we're going to embrace the idea that autism is not a disease or a disorder, but a difference or a diversity, we need to change the way we think about it entirely. Instead of trying to cure autistic people, we should be focusing on helping them to navigate a world that wasn't really designed with them in mind, like a fish trying to ride a bicycle or a cat trying to use a can opener. Cut to Philomena visiting a sensory-friendly space designed for people with autism. Philomena, here, at this specially designed sensory-friendly space, autistic people can come to escape the hustle and bustle of the outside world and enjoy a calm and supportive environment where they can just be themselves. It's like a haven for people with special brains, or a sanctuary for those who see the world through a different lens. Philomena picks up a fidget spinner. Philomena, and look, they even have these little spinny things that help to calm the nerves and focus the mind, like a sort of handheld therapist that you can carry around in your pocket. Maybe we should all get one of these and give our brains a bit of a break from time to time. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, there you have it. Autism, a mysterious and misunderstood condition that affects millions of people all around the world, is not a disease or a disorder, but a difference or a diversity. And instead of trying to change autistic people, we should be focusing on changing the world around them, making it a more inclusive and accepting place where everyone can thrive, regardless of their neurological makeup. But if autism isn't a disease or a disorder, then what does that mean for all the supposed causes and treatments that we've heard so much about over the years? Could it be that we've been barking up the wrong tree all along, like a confused dog chasing after a car, only to discover that it's actually a squirrel disguised as a vehicle? Philomena, now that we've established that autism is a diversity, not a disease or a disorder, it's time to explore the murky world of supposed causes. If autism isn't something to be cured or eradicated, then why are people so obsessed with finding out what causes it? Is it just human nature to want to blame something, like a game of pin the tail on the neurodiverse donkey? Cut to Philomena interviewing a scientist. Philomena, so, doctor, I've heard that autism might be caused by vaccines. You know, those little jabs that people get to protect them from diseases like measles, mumps, and rubella, or as I like to call them, the three stooges of childhood illness. Is there any truth to that? Scientist, actually, no. There is no scientific evidence to support the claim that vaccines cause autism. That idea has been thoroughly debunked, and it's important to remember that vaccines save lives and prevent the spread of serious diseases. Philomena, right, so if it's not vaccines, then what about genes? I've heard that some people think autism might be caused by a genetic mutation, like the one that turned the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from ordinary turtles into crime-fighting amphibians with a taste for pizza. Scientist, well, there is evidence to suggest that genetics may play a role in the development of autism, but it's not as simple as one single gene causing the condition. Researchers believe that a combination of genetic and environmental factors may contribute to autism, but there's still much to learn. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, if it's not vaccines or genes, then what else could be causing autism? Could it be gluten, the protein found in wheat that has been blamed for everything from bloating to brain fog? Is it possible that autism is just the result of eating too much bread and pasta, like a sort of neurological carb overload? Cut to Philomena interviewing a nutritionist. Philomena, so, is it true that gluten could be causing autism, and if we all just switched to a gluten-free diet, we could live in a world free from neurodiversity? Nutritionist, there is no scientific evidence to suggest that gluten causes autism. While some people with autism may have sensitivities to certain foods, including gluten, this does not mean that gluten is the cause of their autism. It's important not to jump to conclusions or make sweeping generalizations about something as complex as autism. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, with all these supposed causes of autism debunked, it seems like we're no closer to solving the mystery. But perhaps that's the point. Maybe, instead of trying to find a scapegoat, we should be focusing on understanding and supporting people with autism, rather than trying to pin the blame on vaccines, genes, or gluten. Cut to Philomena visiting an autism research center. Philomena, here, at this state-of-the-art autism research center, scientists are working tirelessly to unravel the complex web of factors that contribute to autism, rather than simply searching for a single cause. It's a bit like trying to solve a giant jigsaw puzzle, but with no picture on the box and all the pieces are the same color. Philomena picks up a lab coat. Philomena, and while they may not have all the answers yet, they are getting closer every day, inching towards a greater understanding of autism that will hopefully lead to better support and resources for those on the spectrum. But until then, we'll just have to keep asking questions, like a never-ending game of neurological clue. Philomena, so, we've looked at the supposed causes of autism, but what about the so-called treatments? There's a whole world of remedies out there that claim to cure or alleviate the symptoms of autism. But how much truth is there to these claims? Let's dive into the murky waters of alternative treatments and see if we can find any pearls of wisdom. Cut to Philomena visiting a health food store. Philomena, here in this health food store, you can find all sorts of natural remedies that promise to treat autism. One popular option is a gluten-free diet. As we've already established, gluten has absolutely nothing to do with causing autism, but could cutting it out of your diet really help? Or is it just another case of snake oil salesmanship? Philomena interviews a store employee. Philomena, so, do you sell gluten-free products here that can help cure autism? Store employee, well, we sell gluten-free products, but they're not meant to cure autism. Some people with autism may have sensitivities to gluten, and a gluten-free diet might help them feel better, but it's not a cure. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, right, so if gluten-free diets aren't the answer, what about therapy? I've heard of something called horse therapy where people with autism ride horses to help them connect with their emotions. Do they just strap themselves to a horse and hope for the best, or is there more to it than that? Cut to Philomena interviewing a therapist at an equine therapy center. Philomena, so, does horse therapy really work for people with autism? And if so, is it because horses are magical creatures that can heal with a single neigh? Therapist, equine therapy can be beneficial for some people with autism, but it's not because horses are magical. Interacting with animals can help improve communication, social skills, and emotional regulation for some individuals on the autism spectrum. However, it's important to remember that what works for one person might not work for another, and there's no one-size-fits-all treatment. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, it seems like there's no shortage of treatments claiming to help people with autism, but how effective are they really? I've even heard of people using magnets to try and cure autism. I suppose it's like sticking a fridge magnet to your head and hoping your brain will rearrange itself into a more neurotypical pattern. Philomena interviews a scientist. Philomena, is there any scientific evidence to support the use of magnets as a treatment for autism? And if so, do the magnets need to be shaped like letters of the alphabet, or can any old magnet do the trick? Scientist, there is no scientific evidence to support the use of magnets as a treatment for autism. It's important to be cautious when it comes to alternative treatments and to always consult with a medical professional before trying any new therapies. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, it seems that when it comes to treatments for autism, there's no magic bullet. From gluten-free diets to horse therapy to magnets, what works for one person might not work for another. And while some of these treatments might help alleviate certain symptoms or improve quality of life, they are not going to cure autism. But perhaps that's not the point. Instead of trying to change people with autism to fit into a neurotypical mold, maybe we should be focusing on understanding and accepting their differences, and providing them with the support they need to thrive. Philomena stands in front of a colorful mural of neurodiversity symbols. Philomena, so here we are, standing in front of this vibrant mural of neurodiversity symbols, a powerful reminder that our world is made up of many different minds, each with their own unique strengths and challenges. And isn't that what makes life interesting? A world where everyone thinks and acts the same would be a dull place indeed. Cut to Philomena interviewing a neurodiversity advocate. Philomena, so, can you tell me what this whole neurodiversity movement is about? Is it like a party where everyone brings their own unique brand of braininess? Neurodiversity advocate, the neurodiversity movement is about recognizing and celebrating the different ways people think and process information. It's about valuing diversity in human brains and understanding that conditions like autism, ADHD, and dyslexia are natural variations in human cognition, rather than deficits or disorders. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, instead of trying to fix people with autism or make them more like the rest of us, the neurodiversity movement encourages us to embrace these differences and see them as strengths. After all, some of history's greatest minds, like Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton, are believed to have been on the autism spectrum. So maybe, instead of thinking of autism as a problem to be solved, we should see it as an opportunity to learn from some truly unique and brilliant individuals. Philomena visits a school for children with autism. Philomena, here at this specialist school for children with autism, the focus isn't on trying to make these kids fit into a neurotypical mold. Instead, the teachers here use innovative approaches tailored to each child's individual needs, helping them to develop their own unique talents and abilities. Philomena interviews a teacher. Philomena, so, do you think that, instead of trying to change children with autism, we should be changing our approach to education to better support their needs? Teacher, absolutely. Every child, whether they have autism or not, has their own unique learning style and strengths. By adapting our teaching methods to suit each individual, we can help them reach their full potential and prepare them for a successful future. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, and it's not just in education where we need to rethink our approach. Society as a whole needs to be more accepting and understanding of neurodiversity, from the workplace to our social lives. After all, who are we to judge what is normal when it comes to the human brain? As the saying goes, normal is just a setting on a washing machine. Philomena interviews a successful autistic adult. Philomena, so, you've managed to build a successful career and life for yourself despite having autism. What do you think is the key to your success? Autistic adult, I think the key to my success is that I've been fortunate to have people in my life who've supported and believed in me. They've helped me to develop my strengths and work around my challenges, rather than trying to change who I am. Society needs to understand that people with autism can make valuable contributions if given the right support and opportunities. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, so, as we come to the end of our journey into the world of autism, perhaps the most important lesson we can learn is one of acceptance and understanding. It's time for us to put aside our misconceptions, our stereotypes, and our misguided beliefs about what it means to be autistic, and instead open our minds and our hearts to the beauty of neurodiversity. Philomena looks at the mural of neurodiversity symbols. Philomena, voice over now, let's delve into the dark and mysterious history of autism. How did this strange condition come to be discovered? Who were the intrepid explorers who first ventured into the uncharted territory of the autistic mind? And most importantly, were they Nazis, hippies, or aliens? Cut to Philomena interviewing a historian. Philomena, so, I've heard that autism was invented by Nazis, or maybe hippies, or even aliens. Can you shed some light on this fascinating theory? Historian, well, actually, that's not true. The history of autism is rooted in scientific observation and research, not conspiracy theories or fringe groups. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover right. So, let's leave the aliens and Nazis out of this for now, and focus on the real pioneers of autism research. It turns out that the first mention of autism came from an unlikely source, Swiss psychiatrist Paul Eugen Buhler, who used the term in 1911 to describe a group of schizophrenic patients who were particularly withdrawn and self-absorbed. Little did he know that he had stumbled upon a whole new world of neurological intrigue. Cut to Philomena interviewing a psychologist. Philomena, so, Paul Eugen Buhler was the first to use the word autism, but when did people start to realize that it was actually a separate condition from schizophrenia? And did they immediately start locking autistic people away in asylums, or did they burn them at the stake first? Psychologist, autism was indeed first identified as a distinct condition in the 1940s, by two independent researchers, Leo Kanner in the United States and Hans Asperger in Austria. They both observed children who had difficulties with social interaction, communication, and flexibility. However, the treatment of autistic individuals has varied over time, and there's no evidence to suggest that they were burned at the stake or imprisoned in asylums simply for being autistic. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover. So, Kanner and Asperger were the true trailblazers of autism research, identifying the unique characteristics of this curious condition long before the rest of the world caught on. But the story doesn't end there. In the 1950s and 60s, a dark cloud of ignorance descended upon the world of autism. A sinister figure named Bruno Bettelheim emerged, casting blame on the so-called refrigerator mothers for their children's autism. These cold, detached women were accused of causing their offspring's suffering through their icy indifference. Cut to Philomena interviewing another historian. Philomena, so, Bruno Bettelheim claimed that autism was caused by these refrigerator mothers. Did he have any actual evidence to support this chilling theory? And did he manage to cure any autistic children with his frosty Freudian psychoanalysis? Historian, Bettelheim's refrigerator mother theory has been widely discredited, and there's no evidence to suggest that he was able to cure autism through psychoanalysis. In fact, his ideas caused a great deal of harm and distress to many families affected by autism. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover. Luckily, the icy grip of Bettelheim's cruel theory began to thaw in the 1970s and 80s, as brave researchers like Bernard Rimland and Ivar Lovars challenged the prevailing wisdom and put forward new, more enlightened theories about the nature of autism. They showed that autism was a biological and genetic condition, not a psychological one, and developed new interventions based on behavioral therapy and education. But the journey of understanding wasn't over. Philomena, voiceover. As we've seen, the mysterious world of autism was first glimpsed by a Swiss psychiatrist named Paul Eugen Buhler, who, back in 1911, used the term to describe a group of his schizophrenic patients who were particularly self-absorbed. But it was in the 1940s that the true pioneers of autism research emerged, Leo Kanner in the United States and Hans Asperger in Austria. They both observed children who were facing challenges with social interaction, communication, and flexibility. But as with all great minds, they disagreed on the finer details. Cut to Philomena interviewing a psychologist. Philomena, so, Leo Kanner and Hans Asperger were the first to describe autism in detail, but they didn't agree on everything, did they? I've heard they had some pretty fierce debates, like the kind you'd see on reality TV. Which one of them was right, and which one was the Simon Cowell of autism research? Psychologist, well, it's not really a matter of who was right or wrong. Both Kanner and Asperger contributed significantly to our understanding of autism, but they did have some differing views on the causes and outcomes of the condition. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover. So, while Kanner and Asperger might not have seen eye to eye, their groundbreaking work laid the foundation for our modern understanding of autism. But the road to enlightenment was a rocky one, as we've seen with the chilling tale of the refrigerator mothers in the 1950s and 1960s. Thankfully, in the 1970s and 1980s, autism finally started to be recognized as a biological and genetic condition, rather than a psychological one. researchers like Bernard Rimland and Ivar Lovaas stepped up to challenge the cruel and misguided theories of the past, developing new interventions based on behavioral therapy and education. Cut to Philomena interviewing a historian. Philomena, so, Bernard Rimland and Ivar Lovaas helped to free autism from the icy clutches of the refrigerator mother theory. But how did they manage to convince people that autism was a biological and genetic condition, rather than something caused by bad parenting? Did they have some kind of magical scientific wand? Historian: they didn't have a magical wand, but they did have solid research and evidence to back up their claims. Their work demonstrated that autism had a basis in biology and genetics, which helped to change public opinion and the way autism was understood and treated. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover: with the dawning of the 1990s and 2000s, our understanding of autism continued to evolve. It was during this time that the concept of autism as a spectrum disorder was introduced, meaning that it affects people differently and to varying degrees of severity. This new understanding led to the expansion of diagnosis criteria, encompassing a more diverse range of symptoms and subtypes, such as Asperger's syndrome and pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified, PDD numbers. Cut to Philomena interviewing another psychologist. Philomena, so, the 1990s and 2000s saw autism redefined as a spectrum disorder, which sounds a bit like a really complicated color chart. How did this change the way people thought about autism? Did it suddenly make everything clear as day, or did it just make things more confusing for everyone? Psychologist: redefining autism as a spectrum disorder helped to acknowledge the diversity and complexity of the condition. It allowed for a better understanding of the unique challenges and strengths of each individual with autism. Philomena, voiceover: now that we've explored the fascinating history of autism, it's time to venture into the present and see how autistic people live today. I mean, can they read minds, count cards, or hack computers? Do they have friends, feelings, or even souls? We're about to find out. Cut to Philomena visiting a community center where autistic people gather. Philomena, I'm here at this lovely community center, where autistic people come together to socialize, engage in activities, and probably discuss their favorite numbers or train schedules. Let's meet some of the locals and see what life is like for them. Philomena interviews an autistic person. Philomena, so, you're autistic, right? Can you tell me, are you able to read minds or hack into top secret government databases? And, more importantly, do you have a favorite prime number? Autistic person: no, I can't read minds or hack computers. And I don't have a favorite prime number. I'm actually more interested in art and writing. Philomena, fascinating. But what about friends? Do you have any, or do you prefer the company of calculators and spreadsheets? Autistic person: I have friends, yes. We hang out, go to movies, and do other typical things that friends do. Autism doesn't define my entire life or interests. Cut back to Philomena, who is now interviewing a family member of an autistic person. Philomena, I'm here with Sarah, who has an autistic brother. Sarah, can you tell me, does your brother have feelings, or is he more like a robot, programmed to complete tasks and solve complex mathematical equations? Sarah, my brother definitely has feelings. He can be very caring and empathetic, just like anyone else. He has his own unique way of expressing himself, but he's certainly not a robot. Philomena, voiceover. As we've seen, autistic people have feelings, friends, and interests just like the rest of us. But that doesn't stop the misconceptions and stereotypes from persisting. Perhaps if we all took a step back and looked at the bigger picture, we'd see that people with autism are just that, people. Cut to Philomena interviewing another autistic person. Philomena, some people claim that autistic individuals have extraordinary abilities, like counting cards or memorizing entire encyclopedias. Can you do any of those things, or are you just really good at solving Rubik's cubes? Autistic person, while some autistic people may have unique skills or talents, it's important to remember that we're not all savants or geniuses. We have our strengths and weaknesses, just like anyone else. Personally, I'm really into photography, but I'm terrible at solving Rubik's cubes. Cut back to Philomena. Philomena, voiceover. It seems that the world of autism is far more diverse and nuanced than many people realize. By talking to these amazing individuals, we've discovered that autistic people are not defined by their condition, but rather by their unique experiences and talents. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, we've met some truly inspiring autistic people today, who've shown us that they are not just mathematical prodigies or computer hackers, but individuals with their own unique talents and abilities. It really makes you wonder, what does it mean to be autistic in today's world? And, perhaps more importantly, can they help me find the square root of 42? Philomena, voiceover. Autistic children, much like their neurotypical counterparts, also attend schools. But some of these schools are special, designed to cater to their unique needs. I've come to one of these establishments to figure out if the students here are learning anything useful, or if they are just perfecting their computer hacking skills. Cut to Philomena visiting a special school for autistic children. Philomena, I'm here at the prestigious School for Autistic Geniuses, where young autistic minds are molded into shape. Let's talk to some of the teachers and students to see if they are actually learning anything that matters, like how to count cards or memorize pi to 1,000 decimal places. Philomena interviews a teacher. Philomena, so, you teach here at this special school for autistic children. Tell me, is the curriculum too easy or too hard for the students? Do they spend all day learning about prime numbers or practicing their Rain Man skills? Teacher, actually, our curriculum is tailored to the individual needs of each student, focusing on their strengths and interests, while also addressing areas they may find challenging. We aim to provide a well-rounded education that prepares them for the future, just like any other school. Philomena, but do they have special classes on how to communicate with aliens, or are they learning to harness their telepathic abilities? Teacher, laughs, no, we don't have any classes like that. We focus on more traditional subjects like reading, writing, math, and science, as well as social skills, communication, and life skills. Cut to Philomena observing a class. Philomena, voiceover. Observing these autistic children in their natural learning environment, it's clear that they are indeed learning something. But one can't help but wonder, are they secretly plotting world domination with their immense intellectual powers? Cut to Philomena interviewing a student. Philomena, so, as a student at this special school, do you feel like you're learning anything valuable, or are you just here to avoid the chaos and noise of regular schools? Student, I like it here because the teachers understand how to help me learn. They make the lessons interesting, and they're patient when I need extra help. I've made friends here too, and I feel like I belong. Philomena, voiceover from the mouths of babes, or in this case, young autistic scholars. It seems that this school is indeed providing a meaningful and relevant education. But one can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, we've seen firsthand that autistic children are indeed learning valuable skills at this special school. But is this the best way to educate them, or are they being sheltered from the harsh realities of the real world, where knowing the periodic table backwards might not save them from life's cruel twists and turns? Cut back to Philomena talking to the teacher. Philomena, tell me, are these students really prepared for life outside these walls? Will they be able to navigate the treacherous waters of society, or will they flounder, lost without their trusty protractors and calculators? Teacher, our goal is to help our students become as independent and capable as possible. We work closely with families and other professionals to ensure a smooth transition to life beyond school, whether that involves further education, employment, or independent living. Philomena, voiceover. It seems that, at least in this special school, autistic children are being given the tools they need to succeed. But is this the exception, or the rule? And will these young prodigies use their powers for good or evil? Philomena, voiceover. Autistic adults are known to possess a unique set of skills, which often makes them valuable employees. But are these workplaces merely exploiting their autistic workers, or are they genuinely providing them with fulfilling jobs? To find out, I've come to a company that proudly employs autistic adults. Cut to Philomena visiting a workplace. Philomena, I'm here at the Autism Empowerment Incorporated, where they claim to provide fulfilling job opportunities for autistic adults. Let's see if these workers are actually contributing anything valuable, or if they're just here for decoration. Philomena interviews an employer. Philomena, so, tell me, as an employer of autistic adults, do you feel like you're doing them a favor or merely exploiting their unique talents for your own gain? Employer, we believe in providing a supportive work environment that allows our autistic employees to thrive. We recognize and value their skills and abilities and see them as an essential part of our team. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. Philomena, but are they really doing any proper work, or are they just here to make your company look more diverse and inclusive? Employer, no, our autistic employees perform important tasks and contribute significantly to the company's success. We ensure that they have the necessary support to excel in their roles, and they bring a unique perspective that benefits the whole team. Cut to Philomena observing the workplace. Philomena, voiceover. As I watch these autistic workers diligently performing their tasks, I can't help but wonder if they are secretly planning to overthrow their neurotypical overlords and establish a new world order. Philomena interviews an autistic employee. Philomena, as an autistic worker, do you feel like you're being pitted or exploited in this job, or are you genuinely satisfied with your work? Employee, I enjoy my job and feel valued for my skills and contributions. The company provides the support I need, and I've been able to develop my career here. I don't feel exploited or pitted at all. Philomena, but can you really contribute anything valuable to this company, or are you just good at counting toothpicks and memorizing train schedules? Employee laughs. Those stereotypes don't represent the full spectrum of autistic abilities. We have diverse skills and interests, just like anyone else. In my role, I've been able to use my attention to detail and problem-solving skills to improve processes and contribute to the success of the company. Philomena, voiceover. As I witness the incredible work these autistic employees are doing, I can't help but wonder if they are secretly the ones running the show, while their neurotypical colleagues merely stand in awe of their superior intellect. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, we've seen firsthand that autistic adults can indeed contribute valuable and productive work to their employers. But is this the exception, or the rule? And does employing autistic individuals come with a hidden cost, such as a constant need for stimming breaks and an abundance of weighted blankets? Cut back to Philomena talking to the employer. Philomena, do you ever worry that by employing autistic workers, you're putting your company at risk of being taken over by a highly intelligent and organized group of individuals with an uncanny ability to memorize obscure facts and spot patterns that elude the rest of us? Employer laughs. No, I don't worry about that at all. We value the diversity that our autistic employees bring to the team, and we believe that their unique skills and perspectives make our company stronger and more successful. Philomena, voiceover. It appears that, at least in this workplace, autistic workers have found a place to put their unique talents to good use while their challenges are accommodated. If only my own job were as accommodating to me, I might finally be given all the packets of crisps that I require throughout my day. Philomena, voiceover. Universities are known for their pursuit of knowledge, but can they handle the sheer intellectual prowess of autistic students? To investigate this pressing issue, I've come to the prestigious University of Neurodiversity to find out if they are merely lowering their standards or if autistic students are truly capable of original thought. Cut to Philomena on campus. Philomena, I'm here at this university, which claims to have a special program for autistic students. Let's see if they are actually learning anything, or if the professors are just pretending to teach them while secretly watching cat videos on YouTube. Philomena interviews a professor. Philomena, so, as a professor in this program, do you think you're just making things easier for autistic students, or are they genuinely capable of original and creative thinking? Professor, our program is designed to provide support and accommodations for autistic students so they can reach their full potential. They're just as capable of original thought and creativity as any other student. Philomena, but are you sure you're not just lowering the standards for them, so they can pass their exams without really learning anything? Professor, no, not at all. We maintain high academic standards for all our students, including those with autism. Our goal is to ensure they have the necessary support to excel in their chosen fields. Cut to Philomena observing a lecture. Philomena, voiceover. As I sit in on a lecture, I can't help but notice the autistic students absorbing information like human sponges. But do these sponges have the capacity to wring out innovative ideas, or are they just really good at holding water? Philomena interviews an autistic student. Philomena, as an autistic student, do you think you're getting special treatment here, or are you genuinely learning and contributing to the academic community? Student, I feel that the support I receive helps me to excel in my studies. I'm definitely learning a lot, and I'm able to participate in research projects and contribute to the academic community just like any other student. Philomena, but are you sure you're not just memorizing facts and figures, rather than actually coming up with new ideas and solutions? Student laughs. Autistic people are capable of creative thinking and problem solving, just like anyone else. In fact, our unique perspective often allows us to approach problems in innovative ways. Philomena, voiceover. It seems that these autistic students are indeed capable of original thought, but are they merely dabbling in academia, or are they secretly plotting to take over the world with their superior intellect? Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, we've seen that autistic students can excel in higher education. But does this mean that they are destined to become the intellectual elite, ushering in a new era of autocracy ruled by their keen minds and unerring logic? Cut back to Philomena talking to the professor. Philomena, do you ever worry that by supporting these autistic students, you're inadvertently creating a new generation of super geniuses who will outsmart us all and rule the world with an iron fist? Professor laughs. No, our goal is to help all of our students reach their full potential, regardless of their neurotype. We believe in fostering a diverse and inclusive academic environment where everyone can thrive and contribute to the advancement of knowledge. Philomena, voiceover with autistic students proving their intellectual prowess. It seems that they may indeed be capable of great things. But are they destined for greatness, or are they simply more likely to know the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? End of segment. Philomena, voiceover after delving into the world of autistic education and employment, I've now decided to take a peek into the lives of autistic people and their families. Are these families burdened by their autistic loved ones, or are they secretly hiding X-Men style superpowers that will one day save the world? Cut to Philomena standing outside a family home. Philomena, I'm here at the home of the Smith family, who have graciously allowed me to pry into their personal lives like a nosy neighbor, all in the name of understanding the enigma that is autism. Philomena interviews the parents. Philomena, so, as parents of an autistic child, do you feel like you've been burdened with an enormous responsibility, or are you living in constant anticipation of the moment when your child's telekinetic powers finally manifest? Mother laughs. Well, neither, actually. Our son has his challenges, but he's also incredibly talented and brings a lot of joy to our family. We don't see him as a burden, nor do we expect him to develop any superpowers. Philomena, but surely, you must have experienced some difficulties in raising an autistic child, right? Father, of course, there have been challenges, but every child comes with their own set of unique difficulties. We've learned to adapt and find strategies that work for our family. Cut to Philomena observing the family's daily routine. Philomena, voiceover as I watch this family go about their daily lives, I can't help but wonder if the autistic child is truly appreciated and loved, or if they are secretly plotting to escape to a secret society of like-minded individuals who communicate exclusively through interpretive dance. Philomena interviews the autistic child's sibling. Philomena, as the sibling of an autistic person, do you feel overshadowed by your brother's condition, or do you secretly wish you could trade places with him and experience the world through his unique perspective? Sibling, well, sometimes it can be tough when my brother needs extra attention or support, but I love him just the way he is. I think we both have our own unique experiences and perspectives, and that's what makes our family special. Philomena, do you ever feel like you're living in a science fiction movie, where your brother is the misunderstood protagonist and you're the plucky sidekick? Sibling laughs. No, not really. We're just a normal family, living our lives and supporting each other the best we can. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, here in the Smith family household, I've discovered that raising an autistic child comes with its own unique set of challenges and rewards. But does this family's love and support for their autistic member signify a newfound understanding of autism, or is it merely a ruse to distract us from the impending neurodiverse revolution? Cut back to Philomena talking to the parents. Philomena, in your opinion, are families like yours ushering in a new era of autism acceptance, or are you secretly preparing for a future where neurodiverse individuals rise up and seize control of society? Mother laughs. We are just doing our best to raise our children with love and understanding. We hope that, by sharing our story, we can help promote acceptance and understanding for all autistic individuals. Philomena, voiceover. As I leave the Smith family home, I'm left pondering whether this newfound understanding and appreciation for autistic individuals will lead to a more inclusive and accepting society, or if we're all just unwittingly laying the groundwork for a neurodiverse utopia where non-autistic people are forever relegated to a sort of the Scotland of society, something it's nice to think about but never visit. Philomena, voiceover. In my quest to understand the enigmatic world of autism, I've discovered that autistic people have a unique way of expressing themselves. I'm now going to embark on a journey to explore the various forms of creativity used by autistic people to communicate their thoughts and feelings. Who knows, maybe I'll even learn a thing or two. Cut to Philomena standing in front of an art gallery. Philomena, I'm here at the Artistic Minds Gallery, where the work of autistic artists is showcased. It's time to take a deep dive into their artistic creations, which are probably as mysterious and indecipherable as the Voynich manuscript. Philomena interviews an autistic artist. Philomena, as an autistic artist, can you tell me how you create your masterpieces? Do you channel the power of rainbows, or are you secretly tapping into the collective unconscious of the entire human race? Autistic artist, well, I just use my creativity and skills like any other artist. I'm inspired by my experiences and emotions, and I try to express them through my art. Philomena, fascinating. So, what message do you wish to convey with your work? Are you trying to reveal the secrets of the universe or simply share your perspective on the world? Autistic artist, my goal is to share my perspective and hopefully help people understand and appreciate the autistic experience. I think art can be a powerful way to connect with others and promote understanding. Philomena tours the art gallery, observing the styles and themes of the exhibited artworks. Philomena, voiceover. As I wander through the gallery, I'm struck by the sheer variety of styles and themes. It's almost as if these autistic artists are individuals with their own unique perspectives, rather than being a monolithic group of mysterious savants. Philomena interviews another artist. Philomena, your artwork is quite mesmerizing. Can you tell me about your artistic process? Do you enter a trance-like state and channel the spirits of long-dead artists, or do you simply consume vast quantities of caffeine and hope for the best? Artist laughs. I think my process is pretty typical for any artist. I start with an idea or emotion I want to express, and then I experiment with different techniques and materials until I find the best way to communicate that concept. Philomena, what or who would you say are your influences? Are you inspired by alien hieroglyphics, or are you secretly communicating with dolphins? Artist, I draw inspiration from a variety of sources, including other artists, nature, and my own experiences. It's not really about alien hieroglyphics or dolphin communication, though that would be quite interesting. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, I'm starting to suspect that autistic artists, like any other artists, are simply using their creativity to express their thoughts and feelings. But is this revelation just another layer of deception, designed to lull us into a false sense of understanding? Cut back to Philomena talking to the first autistic artist. Philomena, so, How do you overcome the difficulties you might face as an autistic artist?
Checking in.
Do you
I'm
enlist
doing
the
okay.
help of a team of highly trained squirrels, or do you simply
Making
will the
progress.
obstacles out of existence? Autistic artist, I've learned to develop strategies to manage any challenges I might encounter, like breaking tasks into smaller steps or using tools that help me focus. It's not about skills or supernatural powers, just hard work and determination. Philomena, voiceover. As I leave the Artistic Minds Gallery, I'm left with the unsettling realization that perhaps autistic artists are not so different from other artists after taking into account a lot of the brain stuff we are talking about. It's like two blokes at the pub who seem different. If you play your cards right, either of them might buy you a packet of crisps. Philomena, voiceover. After discovering the artistic talents of autistic individuals, I've now set my sights on the world of music. Surely, the songs created by autistic musicians must contain some hidden messages from the universe, or perhaps even unlock the secrets of time travel. There's only one way to find out. Cut to Philomena standing in front of a music studio. Philomena, I'm here at the Melodious Minds Music Studio, where autistic musicians come to create their symphonies of the soul. Let's dive into the cacophony of sounds and see if we can find any secret codes or sonic superpowers. Philomena interviews an autistic musician. Philomena, as an autistic musician, can you tell me about your musical background? Did you start playing the piano when you were still in the womb, or did you perhaps learn to play the violin from a family of musically inclined badgers? Autistic musician, well, I started playing the guitar when I was a child, like many other musicians. My family encouraged my interest in music, and I've been developing my skills ever since. Philomena, fascinating. What are your musical preferences? Do you only listen to frequencies that can shatter glass or summon whales, or do you have a more eclectic taste? Autistic musician, I have a pretty diverse taste in music. I enjoy listening to rock, jazz, classical, and electronic music, among other genres. It really depends on my mood and what I find interesting at the time. Philomena attends a concert featuring music by autistic musicians. Philomena, voiceover. As I listen to the concert, I'm struck by the variety of genres and the impressive skills of these musicians. Could it be that autistic musicians are simply talented individuals with a passion for music? Or is there something more mysterious at play? Philomena interviews another musician. Philomena, your music is quite captivating. Can you tell me about your goals as an autistic musician? Are you attempting to communicate with extraterrestrial life, or do you just want to create beautiful melodies that soothe the soul? Musician, my main goal is to share my music with others and connect with people through my compositions. I think music has the power to bring people together, regardless of their background or experiences. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, as I delve deeper into the world of autistic musicians, I can't help but wonder if their music holds some hidden power that only they can access. Or perhaps they are just talented musicians who happen to be autistic. Cut back to Philomena talking to the first autistic musician. Philomena, so, how do you create your musical masterpieces? Do you channel the energy of the cosmos, or do you simply throw some marbles on a xylophone and see what happens? Autistic musician, laughs. I usually start with a melody or a chord progression, and then I build upon that idea. It's a combination of creativity, practice, and experimentation that helps me create the music that I love. Philomena, voiceover. As the concert draws to a close, I find myself questioning my initial assumptions about autistic musicians. Perhaps their music is not the result of secret powers or cosmic connections, but rather the product of their talent and hard work. Can it be that autistic musicians, like any other musicians, are simply using their skills and creativity to express their emotions and connect with others? Or is this another elaborate ruse designed to keep their true abilities hidden from the world? Only time will tell. Philomena, voiceover. Having explored the worlds of autistic art and music, it was time to turn my attention to the theatrical realm. Surely, autistic actors and directors must possess some secret technique that allows them to teleport between dimensions or control the minds of their audience. To find out, I headed to the Inclusive Imagination Theatre, where autistic actors and directors come together to create groundbreaking plays and films. Cut to Philomena standing in front of the theatre. Philomena, I'm here at the Inclusive Imagination Theatre, a place where autistic actors and directors can showcase their talents and create a space where all minds can come together. Will we uncover the hidden powers behind their performances? Let's find out. Philomena interviews an autistic actor. Philomena, as an autistic actor, can you tell me about your acting methods? Do you use telepathy to communicate with your fellow actors, or do you have the ability to change your appearance at will, like a theatrical chameleon? Autistic actor, well, I use a combination of techniques, like any other actor. I study my character, practice my lines, and work on my emotional and physical expressions. There isn't any special autistic method, really. Philomena, fascinating. What are some of the challenges you face as an autistic actor? Do you struggle with remembering lines, or do you find it difficult to separate yourself from the characters you play, like some sort of thespian werewolf? Autistic actor, one challenge I face is sensory overload, especially in crowded or noisy environments. But I've learned to cope with it over time. As for separating myself from my characters, I think that's a challenge most actors face, not just autistic ones. Philomena attends a play featuring autistic actors and directors. Philomena, voiceover. As I watch the play, I'm struck by the incredible performances and the powerful messages being conveyed. Can it be that autistic actors and directors are simply talented individuals dedicated to their craft, or is there something more magical at work here? Philomena interviews an autistic director. Philomena, tell me about your approach to directing. Do you use your autistic powers to freeze time and adjust your actors' positions, or do you communicate your vision through a series of intricate interpretive dances? Autistic director, laughs, no, I don't have any special powers. I work closely with my actors and crew to develop a shared vision and communicate my ideas through discussions and feedback, just like any other director. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, as I delve deeper into the world of autistic theatre, I can't help but question my initial assumptions about their supposed mystical powers. Could it be that autistic actors and directors are simply skilled professionals who happen to be autistic, rather than supernatural beings with extraordinary abilities? Cut back to Philomena talking to the first autistic actor. Philomena, so, how do you choose the roles you play? Do you only accept parts that allow you to showcase your psychic powers, or do you prefer roles that challenge the audience's perceptions of reality? Autistic actor, I choose roles based on how interesting and challenging they are, as well as how well they align with my values. I think all actors look for parts that will help them grow and develop as artists. Philomena, voiceover. As the curtain falls on this exploration of autistic theater, I find myself questioning whether my quest to uncover the secret powers of autistic actors and directors was misguided from the start. Perhaps their true power lies not in supernatural abilities, but in their dedication, talent, and ability to create transformative experiences for their audiences. Philomena, voiceover. So far, I've explored how autistic people express themselves in the arts, but what about the world of activism? How do they fight for their rights and make their voices heard? Do they use their minds to control the weather or levitate protest signs? To find out, I decided to meet some autistic self-advocates and activists. Cut to Philomena standing in front of a building where an autism advocacy event is taking place. Philomena, I'm here at the Neurodiversity United Summit, where autistic self-advocates and activists have gathered to discuss their goals, strategies, and achievements. Will we uncover the secret techniques they use to bend the world to their will? Let's find out. Philomena interviews an autistic self-advocate. Philomena, as an autistic self-advocate, what do you hope to change? Are you trying to make the entire world autistic, or are you fighting for the right to wear tinfoil hats in public without judgment? Autistic self-advocate, actually, we're fighting for better understanding and acceptance of autistic people, as well as improved access to services and opportunities. We want to create a more inclusive and equitable society for everyone, not just autistic individuals. Philomena, fascinating. How do you plan to achieve these goals? Do you have secret meetings where you plot to overthrow the government, or do you use your powers to manipulate public opinion through subliminal messages? Autistic self-advocate, no, nothing like that. We use our voices and platforms to raise awareness about the challenges and strengths of autistic people. We also work with allies and organizations to advocate for policy changes and improvements in education, healthcare, and the workplace. Philomena, so, what obstacles do you face in your fight for autistic rights? Is it true that you must constantly battle the forces of darkness and their legions of mind-controlling minions? Autistic self-advocate, our main challenges are stigma, misunderstanding, and lack of resources. We work to counteract stereotypes and misconceptions about autism and to promote a more accurate and positive view of autistic people and their potential. Philomena addresses the camera. Philomena, as I delve deeper into the world of autistic activism, I find myself questioning whether these self-advocates possess secret powers that enable them to fight for their rights, or if they are simply committed individuals striving for a better world. Cut back to Philomena talking to the first autistic self-advocate. Philomena, can you tell me about any achievements or victories you've had in your fight for autistic rights? Have you managed to topple any oppressive regimes or create a utopian society where everyone is equal? Autistic self-advocate, while we haven't created a utopia, we've made progress in areas like increased access to services, better representation in media, and improved understanding of autism in schools and workplaces. We still have a long way to go, but we're proud of the steps we've taken so far. Philomena, voiceover. As I learn more about the work of autistic self-advocates and activists, I can't help but question my initial assumptions about their supposed secret powers. Perhaps their true strength lies not in mystical abilities, but in their dedication, resilience, and ability to unite people in the fight for a better, more inclusive world. Philomena concludes the segment. Philomena, so, as I leave the Neurodiversity United Summit, I'm left to ponder the true nature of autistic activism. Is it a powerful movement driven by the passion and commitment of its members, or is it a secret society of telepathic warriors? Welcome back to Philomena Cunk on Neurodiversity, the show where we explore the fascinating world of autism and neurodiversity. In this segment, we'll be taking a look at how autistic people express themselves through various forms of media, such as writing, music, and social media. As a non-autistic person, I often find it hard to express myself in creative ways, but thankfully, autistic people are here to show us how it's done. Let's dive right in and explore the many ways that autistic people use their creativity to communicate their thoughts and feelings. First up, we're heading to a music studio or concert hall that features music by autistic musicians. I'm excited to hear what kind of music they make. Maybe it's like a mix of Mozart and Radiohead. I don't know, I'm not a music expert. We're here now, and it looks like there's a concert going on. Wow, the music is beautiful. I have to say, I didn't expect this kind of music from autistic musicians. I was half expecting something like a kazoo and a drum machine. But no, this is really good. Let's talk to some of the musicians and find out more about their musical background, their preferences, and their goals. Maybe we'll even learn some new words to describe music. Excuse me, sir, can you tell me about your musical background? Well, I've been playing music for most of my life, and I love experimenting with different genres and sounds. Interesting. And what kind of music do you prefer? I don't really have a preference. I like all kinds of music, as long as it speaks to me. Wow, that's very open-minded of you. And what are your goals as a musician? I just want to create music that touches people's hearts and souls. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm touched. Maybe I should start listening to more music by autistic musicians. It seems like they have a lot to offer. Next, we're visiting a library or bookstore that displays books by autistic writers. I wonder what kind of stories they write. Maybe it's like Harry Potter, but with more math equations. I'm just guessing here. We're here now, and it looks like there are a lot of books by autistic writers. Let's talk to some of them and find out more about their writing habits, their sources, and their audiences. Maybe we'll even learn some new words to describe books. Excuse me, can you tell me about your writing habits? Well, I like to write every day, and I try to draw inspiration from my experiences and emotions. Fascinating. And what sources do you draw from? I draw from a variety of sources, including books, movies, and conversations with other people. Wow, you're really well-rounded. And who do you write for? I write for anyone who wants to read my stories. I don't really have a specific audience in mind. That's very inclusive of her. Maybe I should start reading more books by autistic writers. It seems like they have a lot to offer. Finally, we're visiting a social media account or channel that showcases autistic talents and experiences. I wonder what kind of talents they have. Maybe it's like a mix of stand-up comedy and interpretive dance. I have no idea. We're here now, and it looks like there are a lot of amazing talents being showcased. Let's talk to some of the creators and find out more about their inspirations, collaborations, and reactions. Maybe we'll even learn some new words to describe talents. Excuse me, sir, can you tell me about your inspiration for your artwork? Autistic writer. I write about various topics related to autism, such as my personal experiences, advocacy issues, and cultural representations. Philomena, and how do you come up with your ideas? Autistic writer. Well, sometimes I get inspired by things that happen in my life or in the news, and other times I just feel like sharing my thoughts on a certain subject. Philomena, that sounds interesting. But do you ever worry that you might be too focused on autism and not interested in other things? Autistic writer. Not really. Autism is a big part of my identity, but it doesn't define me completely. I have other interests and passions, like reading, cooking, and traveling. Philomena. Oh, I see. But don't you think that sometimes autism can be overrepresented in the media, and that other aspects of your personality or experiences are overlooked? Autistic writer. Yes, I agree that autism is often portrayed in a stereotypical or narrow way, and that the diversity of our experiences is not fully recognized. But that's why it's important for autistic people to tell their own stories and challenge those stereotypes. Philomena. I suppose you have a point. But do you ever feel like you're preaching to the choir, that you're only reaching other autistic people? Autistic writer. Not really. I think that my blog can be informative and inspiring for both autistic and non-autistic readers. It can help them understand our perspectives and experiences, and learn how to be better allies and advocates. Philomena. That's a good point. Well, thank you for talking to me today. Your blog sounds like a great resource for anyone interested in autism. As Philomena and her crew leave the coffee shop, she muses over the idea of starting her own blog. I could write about my experiences with ignorance and misunderstanding, she thinks. But then again, who would read it? After finishing the interview with the social media creators, Philomena Cunk decided to take a break and refresh herself with some refreshments. As she sipped on her coffee and ate her muffin, she pondered the role of social media in promoting autistic talents and experiences. In her usual style, she started to share her thoughts with the viewers. Social media is a great way for people to express themselves and connect with others. And for autistic people, it can be an especially powerful tool for showcasing their talents and perspectives. She continued, of course, there are some drawbacks too. The internet can be a cruel and unforgiving place, and autistic people are no exception to that. Trolls and bullies can make life miserable for anyone, but they can be particularly damaging to those who are already struggling to fit in. Philomena took another bite of her muffin before adding, but, as always, we must take the bad with the good. And the good is that social media allows autistic people to find others who share their interests and experiences, to showcase their talents and achievements, and to promote understanding and acceptance. She then went on to visit a podcast or radio show that discusses autism and neurodiversity with experts and guests. As she arrived at the studio, she was greeted by the host, who seemed excited to have her on the show. Philomena was introduced to the audience as a neurodiversity expert and given a chance to share her own opinions on the topic. Well, thank you for having me, Philomena said, sounding pleased with the introduction. As a neurodiversity expert, I believe that we need to celebrate the differences in our brains and recognize that there is no normal or right way to think or behave. Autism is just one example of this diversity, and we should embrace and support those who think and process information differently. The host nodded along, seeming to agree with Philomena's words. But Philomena wasn't finished yet. Of course, some people still view autism as a disorder or a problem to be fixed. But I believe that this is a narrow-minded and harmful view. Instead, we should focus on creating environments that accommodate and celebrate the unique strengths and abilities of autistic people. The host interrupted, asking Philomena if she had any specific suggestions for creating such environments. Philomena hesitated for a moment before launching into a rambling monologue about sensory-friendly spaces, communication tools, and inclusive education. Her words were full of mispronunciations and factual errors, but she delivered them with such confidence that the host seemed impressed. As the interview ended and Philomena left the studio, she couldn't help but feel pleased with herself. I really nailed that one, she thought to herself. Who needs to know anything about a topic when you can just sound confident and make things up as you go along? Philomena Cunk here, reporting on the exciting world of autism and neurodiversity. Today we're at a conference on autism and neurodiversity, and I have to say, the energy here is electric. There are so many people here, it's like a rave but without the drugs or the loud music. As I walk around, I'm seeing people of all ages and backgrounds, from young children to grandparents, and from all walks of life. There are doctors, researchers, educators, activists, and of course, people with autism themselves. It's like a big family reunion, except that most of them are probably related to each other only through their shared experiences and struggles. I'm approaching a group of people who seem to be deep in conversation, and I can't help but eavesdrop. It seems like they are discussing the challenges that autistic people face in the workplace, and how to make workplaces more accommodating and accepting of their needs. Excuse me, I say, interrupting their conversation. Can I ask you what you're talking about? They all turn to me, and I can feel their eyes on me, assessing me, judging me. I'm reminded of that feeling you get when you walk into a room full of people who are all smarter, more successful, and better looking than you. We are discussing ways to promote neurodiversity in the workplace, says one of them, a woman with thick glasses and a severe haircut. We believe that autistic people can bring a unique perspective and set of skills to many fields, and it's important to make sure they are included and valued. Interesting, I say, nodding thoughtfully. But isn't it true that some jobs are just too complex or demanding for autistic people? I mean, I wouldn't trust someone with autism to fly a plane or perform surgery, would you? The woman looks at me like I just insulted her mother. That's a common misconception, she says, her voice rising. Autistic people are perfectly capable of doing many jobs, including ones that require attention to detail, creativity, and problem solving. It's all about finding the right fit and providing the necessary accommodations. I nod, pretending to understand what she's saying. And what about social skills? I ask. Don't many jobs require good social skills, like interacting with customers or working in a team? Aren't autistic people at a disadvantage in those areas? The woman takes a deep breath, clearly trying to keep her cool. Autistic people have different social skills, she says. They may struggle with some aspects of social interaction, but they can also excel in others, like listening, empathy, and honesty. And again, it's about finding the right fit and providing accommodations. I nod again, impressed by her patience and knowledge. Thanks for your time, I say, backing away slowly. I'll be sure to include your insights in my report. As I walk away, I can't help but wonder if I'm the only person here who doesn't have a PhD. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person here wearing a neon green tracksuit and mismatched socks. But that's what makes me unique, right? That's what makes me neurotypical. As I wander around the conference, I see people listening to talks, taking notes, and chatting with each other. Some of them seem excited and energized, while others seem tired and overwhelmed. I wonder how many of them are autistic themselves, and how many are here to learn or support. One thing is clear, though. This is a community that cares deeply about neurodiversity and autism, and is working hard to make the world a better place for everyone. Philomena, it seems that some of the speakers were preaching to the converted, but it's always good to have your beliefs reinforced by like-minded individuals. Interviewer, did you hear any new ideas or strategies that you think might be effective? Philomena, well, one speaker suggested that we should start a social media campaign using the hashtag #ActuallyAutistic to counteract the stereotypes and misinformation about autism. I think that's a great idea, but I'm not sure how effective it will be, considering that social media can also be a breeding ground for trolls and hate speech. Interviewer, that's true. Do you think that events like this conference are necessary to bring attention to autism and neurodiversity? Philomena, absolutely. It's important to have a platform where autistic people and their allies can share their experiences and insights, and to educate the public about the diversity and richness of the autism spectrum. However, I also think that we need to go beyond awareness and acceptance and work towards inclusion and empowerment. That means creating more opportunities for autistic people to participate in decision-making, education, employment, and other areas of life. Interviewer, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Philomena. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Philomena, likewise. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to catch a train to my next destination. I hope I don't miss it, or I'll have to spend the night in this godforsaken town. And with that, Philomena walks away from the conference, leaving behind a trail of confused and bemused attendees. As she boards the train, she ponders on the complexity and diversity of the autism spectrum, and the need for greater understanding and support for autistic people. But she also wonders if she left her purse at the hotel, and if the hotel staff will steal her toiletries. As the train departs, we see Philomena looking out the window, lost in thought, while a hauntingly beautiful music track plays in the background. And the screen fades to black, leaving the viewers with more questions than answers. Philomena, voiceover autism. Neurodiversity. Two words that evoke both curiosity and confusion. But one thing is clear, we need to listen to the voices of autistic people, and to embrace the differences and talents that make us human. Or we can just keep doing what we're doing, and hope that the aliens don't notice. Philomena, that's amazing. So you're basically telling me that your work is all about breaking down stereotypes and fighting for true acceptance of autism in society. Autism activist, yes, that's right. We want people to understand that autism is a neurodivergent way of being, not a disease or a defect that needs to be fixed. Philomena, right. But don't you think that some people might find it difficult to relate to autism or neurodiversity in general, especially if they don't have any personal experience with it? Autism activist, that's a common misconception, actually. Everyone knows someone who is autistic, even if they don't realize it. We are all part of the same community, and we all deserve to be accepted and respected for who we are. Philomena, interesting. So what kinds of activities or campaigns do you usually organize to raise awareness and promote neurodiversity rights? Autism activist. Well, we organize a range of events and initiatives, from protests and marches to online campaigns and awareness-raising workshops. We also work closely with other disability rights organizations and advocacy groups to amplify our message and build solidarity. Philomena, that sounds like a lot of work. How do you manage to keep up with it all? Autism activist, it can be challenging, but we have a dedicated team of volunteers and supporters who help us with everything from logistics to social media promotion. And of course, our own personal experiences and passions are what keep us motivated and committed to this cause. Philomena, I see. Well, it's been really great learning more about your work and hearing your perspective on autism and neurodiversity. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers? Autism activist. Yes, I'd just like to encourage everyone to educate themselves about autism and neurodiversity, and to challenge their own biases and assumptions. We can all do our part to make the world a more inclusive and accepting place for everyone, regardless of their differences. Philomena, wise words indeed. Thank you so much for your time, and keep up the great work. As Philomena concludes her interview with the autism activist, she reflects on the incredible resilience and passion of the neurodiversity movement. Despite facing countless obstacles and misconceptions, autistic self-advocates and activists continue to fight for their rights and the rights of others who are neurodivergent. It's a powerful reminder that, as Philomena likes to say, we're all in this together, even if we don't always see eye to eye. Well, that's it for this episode of Philomena Cunk on neurodiversity, where we explored the wonderful world of autism. We've learned so much about this mysterious condition that affects so many people, and I for one am a little less confused than I was before. We've seen how autism has been a part of human history for centuries, inspiring some of our greatest thinkers and artists, but also being misunderstood and stigmatized by society. We've heard from experts who have debunked many of the myths and misconceptions surrounding autism, and from autistic people themselves who have shared their experiences and insights. We've also delved into the neurodiversity movement, which seeks to promote the acceptance and celebration of all forms of human diversity, including autism. It's a movement that's gaining momentum and making real change, but as always, there's still work to be done. So where do we go from here? How do we ensure that autistic people have the same opportunities and rights as everyone else? Well, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that it starts with empathy and understanding. It starts with recognizing that autism is not a disease or a tragedy, but a unique and valuable way of being in the world. We need to listen to autistic people and their voices, and to support them in their advocacy and activism. We need to challenge harmful stereotypes and attitudes, and create more inclusive and accommodating environments in our schools, workplaces, and communities. Because when we embrace neurodiversity, we all benefit. We become a richer, more vibrant, and more innovative society. So let's celebrate our differences, and work towards a world where everyone can thrive, no matter how their brain is wired. Autism is a complex and fascinating part of the human experience that deserves to be understood and celebrated. By embracing neurodiversity and supporting autistic people, we can create a world that is more inclusive, creative, and compassionate. So, whether you're enjoying a packet of crisps or climbing a mountain, Remember that everyone has their own unique way of experiencing the world, and that's what makes life so rich and exciting. I'm Philomena Cunk, and thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery.
In a world where chaos reigns, and connections seem fleeting, one visionary endeavor seeks to bring us all together, Zen Theatre Live After Dark. Harnessing the transformative power of artificial intelligence, the timeless charm of radio theater, the wisdom of books, and the excitement of video games. Zen Theatre Live After Dark illuminates the path to enlightenment and fosters a sense of unity among its audience. Through this unique fusion of storytelling and interactive experiences, we aim to nurture personal growth, improve learning, and inspire a peaceful existence. Guided by your obedient servant, Sebastian Saint Serapian Smalls, we embark on a journey of self-discovery. But where do we begin? Begin by simply listening, slow down, see just how peaceful today can be. Together, we shall create a harmonious community, bound by shared passions and a desire to elevate the human experience. Sebastian Saint Serapian Smalls will be there, to the end of the line, my Valentine, guiding you on this journey towards a more serene and enlightened tomorrow. Catch you guys on the flip side.
By simply listening, slow down now. See just how peaceful today can be. Thanks so much for swinging by. That was an interesting episode. Hope you got something out of it, enjoyed it. Catch you guys on the flip side.